Welcome to another video. Today's video I'm going to continue working on the 2012 Ford Mustang, getting ready to replace this quarter panel. Stay tuned.
Music bed.
I already went ahead and removed the window here on the side. I did not think that I was going to have to remove this, but I do, because to take this quarter panel on this year's Mustang, there's spot welds here on this side underneath the glass. So I just went ahead and used a knife, which is this one here, through the inside and just starting cutting little by little. It just takes time. You know, this glue is pretty hard. And then I did what I was able to all the way around. I got a longer, like a kitchen knife, just to get the corners here, and then this part here because it's longer. So as you can see, this knife will not be able to reach in there. And then a little bit here, this one I was able to get it. I also used this pick through the inside to kind of, there's two clips on the glass, one here, one here. So I just used this to get kind of behind and break that seal. Little bit in here, and then use the heat gun to just heat it up a little bit. Use this little plastic pry bars to push it in there to kind of start pushing the window out, and then just pulled it out. So it wasn't too bad. I know the guy that took this back window off would have probably had to have it off in just a couple minutes, but I didn't think I had to take this off. So pretty much at this point I'm ready to start cutting. And so I'm gonna, like I mentioned before, gonna do a rough cut, mostly probably around here, not all the way down, so probably here, just to get mostly this damaged piece out. Once I do that, then I'll start figuring out exactly where the spot welds are. So I know, like, you know, here's one I'll have to drill. I think there's another one. I'll have to clean this with the brush. I think there's one here. And then I know I mentioned about different ways to cut this, so I think it's gonna be right around here, right after this part that's kind of crinkled. So just here and maybe back here. And then I'll have to bring in the replacement part and kind of start doing the same. I'll have to remove the window and, you know, start cutting it out of the rest of the body because they send me the whole thing. So doing all the spot welds and everything so that I can weld it back in here. So not too bad. So let me get my grinder with my cutoff wheel, and then we'll start cutting here on the side. Okay, done some progress here. I cut this piece out, so this is really mangled up. I'm gonna remove the antenna from down there. And so with that done, I can see a little bit more of what I'm gonna be working with. So on this area, underneath the car, all of this, there's no damage, which is good. This part here, it was a little bit bent, but I was able to just use a dolly, and it's pretty much where it needs to be now. The only thing, it looks like this inner fender well, it's creased there. So, you know, when it was hit, it creased it down. The nice thing is I do have the new piece that has all of this. And so I can, you know, cut this here. I I mean, I need to see where it would be best, because really to replace this piece, that's a lot that I would have to do. But I can cut it and just weld it, you know, somewhere around here, which actually might work good, because the outside quarter here, it's folded all the way around this inner piece. So like over there, it's got the spot welds. I'm sure it has spot welds here, but it's, once it was welded, it was folded so the tires wouldn't rub. And then back here, I think it, well, actually, I don't think it comes back up, but if I have to cut it here, you know, just cut this piece here. Now I won't have the access to weld it here, obviously, but I can weld from underneath. I already took the carpet piece off, and I can weld it from under here, and just, you know, grind down the welds and then paint it and everything. So that might make it easier for this, you know, if I just cut it a little bit inner, weld it underneath, rather than try to weld it here and have to bend it. So that's where we're at there. You know, I can probably come down and, I mean, possibly even just kind of do that all the way to the bottom corner here. So I'm gonna see what would work best for that. Here on the back, this piece is just a little bit bent up. So, you know, from here, that way it's good. From here, this way, it's a little bit bent up. So same thing, I can, once I cut this out, and I'm gonna finish cutting this out here, this back corner piece, but I can push this down. This is not a big deal. But I do have the piece from the other car, so I can also, you know, maybe weld it where I need to, if I need to replace it. So that's not a big deal. Up here, looks like it has all the spot welds here, and they go actually right on top where the window is, so that's what I expected. And then I am gonna cut this here and do the spot welds in this area, and then cut the new one all the way here and replace all of that, plus all of this. I know I have all the way to about here on the replacement piece, and I am gonna maybe try to cut all the way there. This, you know, I can weld it here on the outside and the inside as well, and then just go in as much as I need. Maybe even this piece, I know I have this piece from the other car. I can just take the outer piece and then weld it to the frame rail. So not, you know, don't cut the frame rail, but cut the outer piece that's welded to that. So it'll be a lot of cutting of the other piece, but a little bit more precise cutting, but that's not a big deal. Here, I mean, same thing. If I leave it all be and then just weld here, I'm gonna remove the muffler here next. That way I have room under here. But if I just have to weld here on the floor, it makes it a lot easier than, you know, trying to break all these spot welds around and put them back if I need to replace that piece as well. So I think this will stay. This I'm gonna cut, you know, maybe all the way. And you know what? I have to look at the new piece, because this might just be, it might just have a bend. And once I cut it here, I mean, I might be able to also just bend this back. I need to see how the new piece is without it being damaged. Maybe that's kind of how it is. It just needs to be, you know, hit a little bit out. But that's where I'm at as of right now. And then, you know, I'll start actually cutting like the main cuts here where it's going to be cut once it's closer. So first, you know, I'm going to cut a little bit farther in here into the door. I know here for the door, I'm not going to stitch weld here or anything. I am going to go all the way to the spot welds, just because that's the best thing. Here I will do that probably around here, and then like I said, around here, and I'll take this whole back, but I'll have to figure this part out. So I may not cut, I'm gonna cut this at the bottom, but I may not cut this part here, just so I can kind of keep the shape. And then I'll have to bring in the other piece, since it's in the trailer, and then start kind of figuring out, because that one, when I cut it, I need to just be very careful of where I cut and not not damage that piece, because with that being the piece that's going to go back in the car, I can't cut too much, because then at that point I messed it up, right? So this one, it's not a big deal. If I do end up cutting a little extra, I do have almost a quarter of a car replacement that I can just replace everything I need. So let me figure some of those things out. I am gonna cut here. I may film that or not, but I'm just gonna use my cutoff wheel and just start cutting a little bit more. I am gonna take the muffler off. So there's just the hangers, and then there's a bolt right down here for a clamp, and it just comes off, and that's just gonna give me access underneath if I need to get under there. And then I'll figure out how to take this antenna off. I'm thinking you turn this top piece here with, maybe like needle nose or like the snap ring pliers. I'm gonna try that out. I'll let you all know how that comes off, just in case. I do know the other piece comes with it, but I need to remove it before paint. That way, if paint gets under there. So that's where we're at. Okay, went ahead and cut a little bit more out of the car here at the bottom. So I cut this piece, that would be the outer quarter panel there. And so now this piece here, I was able to hit it, and very easily it went down. It can go slightly down, but that's pretty much where it needs to be. And the spot welds here that I came off, I can just weld those back to the actual frame rail here. Same with this piece here. And so this part, it's pretty much right where it needs to be. All of this inner piece here, I cut the outer quarter, but I still need to, I would need to cut the actual spot welds here to get it out, and then cut the sim sealer, before welding. So it looks like I probably will leave this inner piece as is. Everything looks the shape that it needs to be. And so here I hit it just slightly. So it would actually seal on the front. I need to work it a little bit more, but that's really all that this little area had of a little bit of damage. This one here, like I mentioned before, I think I'm gonna have to cut it a little bit more far in, and I would just have to look at the new or the replacement one just to see exactly where. But I think if I cut I can cut like kind of here straight, and then I can go to the inside and weld here, and then cut around this side. I can weld from underneath around that area. So I think that's what I'm gonna end up doing as far as this part, because I guess I could cut it. I mean, that would just take into way up here, and this is all good. It's just really this part here. So if I cut it right on, around here, I can weld it from underneath here, all this area. So that's what I'm gonna do next. I have all the metal here and everything. I'm not gonna cut anymore until I bring the other piece. I also need to find out how this piece comes off so I can remove it, and I'll do that on the other piece because I have the piece there, so I can figure out how it comes off. If I damage it, I don't damage the good piece. So I need to grab the other piece and then continue with that piece, cutting the quarter out a little bit, way extra material. Start cutting all the frame rail and everything. I'm not gonna use none of this inside, so I'll have to cut all that off, and then also take that window off. So let me go grab it, and then we'll continue cutting. I went ahead and drilled out some of the spot welds here on this piece that was here, and cut it. So spot welds here, and so I just used my spot weld cutter that I got, and then I pretty much just undid that from here. I did undo the spot welds here on this section, and I just cut it off so I can get this whole piece that's really mangled up out of the way. So as I'm cutting this out of the way, you know, it's okay for me to start cutting pieces. But at this point also, the main thing that I have to remember is to kind of keep in mind where I'm cutting, what I'm cutting, right? Because I don't want to cut too much into the car. Even though I do have plenty on the piece that I got, I want to keep in mind that I want to just the best case scenario. So I have to keep in mind to, you know, cut mindfully so I don't cut too much out of it. So what I'm doing now is, for the spot weld cutter, this is the spot weld cutter that I got from Amazon. You can get the kit, which comes with a bunch of blades. I had an old one, but this middle piece was really flat, so I got a new one. And so that just kind of centers it to keep your drill from wandering away. If you just try to do it like this, it's just gonna, once you push pressure, it's gonna move to the side. So if you get like a 1/16 drill bit and just drill like a slight little hole in the middle, that keeps it centered. That way you can actually weld it. And then just be mindful when you cut this, how thick your metal is. For example, like this one, I actually went all the way through and cut both pieces of metal. So when you go to weld something like that, let's say I was gonna weld these two pieces together, there's nothing in the middle. So the new piece is gonna go here, so it doesn't really matter, but like up here on this piece of the frame, I don't want it to go all the way through. So, you know, just cut enough that it goes through the first layer. You can always go back and kind of cut more as you need to. And then I'm gonna, you know, once I start drilling these off, I can cut pieces off at a time. But when I go and cut the one that I'm gonna use off the other piece, I can't just cut it. I have to do it all in one piece. So as I'm doing this, I'm kind of learning how things are put together. That way when I go to take the other piece off, it makes more sense to cut it out. So I'm just gonna keep drilling these with my drill bit and then get my spot weld cutter, cut those out, start working around the window. I'm not gonna do all the way around the window because I'm not gonna cut all of that piece off, but I'm gonna do enough to cut, you know, all this bottom piece off. So let me work on that and then I'll show you what it looks like. Once those are pretty much drilled, that's what it's gonna look like. Now I may, you know, if you see there's seam sealer around, so I'll have to get like a really sharp flathead or a chisel and just get underneath. If they're not all the way through, you'll be able to tell where it's not kind of separating, so I can go back and cut a little bit more. But I rather have to cut a little bit more than cut too much. If it is cut all the way through, then it's just gonna separate. Now before we put the new one, really they're not gonna match because every car is just randomly done. So we're gonna have to go in here with the grinder and grind these flat, and then we'll just weld it wherever the spot welds were on the other replacement panel. So I'm gonna work here. I only went up to this one because that should give me, this is the next spot weld here, but I think I'm gonna cut this around here. So that should be enough. I'm gonna come in here and probably start with this one and do all the ones at the bottom, all the way probably to this one here, because that's where I'm gonna cut here. And then that should get, you know, most of this part. Then I'll have to take this piece off and then start working here on the door and take this bottom molding off and start cutting that. I'm also gonna cut here in the front. On the back, it's all scrunched, so I'm not gonna be able to do that. So I'm just gonna cut here to separate it. And then I'm gonna see if I can open this up a little bit, and if the quarter panel comes off this piece just with the seam sealer that they have in there, or the panel adhesive. I don't think there's welds in here, as far as I can tell. I think it's just glue in there, in this part at least. And if that's the case, then for the new one, I'll kind of do the same thing. I'll try to open it so I can kind of hook it in there, you know, fold it back, put some seam sealer or body panel adhesive, and work that way. I really want to be able to, on the replacement piece, take the quarter off and then do this piece separately, so I can actually come in here, weld that piece on the car, and then put the quarter on top. So still a lot of work to do before we get to that piece, so I'm just gonna keep doing the spot welds here, and then once I get here to the door, I'll kind of show you all how this comes off, because I'm not 100% sure. So I'll do it on the replacement panel, since they gave me a piece of that molding. That way if I mess it up, I know what not to do on this one here. Okay, so before I move on, I just wanted to show, I went ahead and cut this a little bit more this way. I think when I do the replacement, I may cut more this way, but this is the most this way that I could kind of, and then I just cut it here to cut this piece. This pieces, they popped off as soon as I cut this. This one's, it was still kind of attached, so I went back with the spot weld cutter and cut a little bit more towards the side here of the quarter, and so then it pretty much just came loose. And as you can see here, it's still kind of held on tight, and so I'll show everyone here really quick, because I think there's still one more spot weld there. So technically there's a little spot weld right here where it, you know, this is held onto this piece here. Now I am gonna cut this piece all the way because of the replacement. I'm gonna use that, but I just kind of wanted to show the process that I'm doing to cut the spot welds. So make sure you don't lose your drill bit like I did. Good thing I have a whole container of these little ones. So I'm just gonna drill a little pilot hole, not all the way through. I'm just gonna drill right there on the middle of the spot weld. That's gonna center this piece here. And then I'm just gonna put that there, and now normally you don't drill that much in, but this was on an angle, so the bottom was kind of hard to get to. But that's pretty much what you do. And that's gonna weld your spot, or cut your spot welds off. So as you can see, now I got this piece off. Now this is gonna be part of a whole panel. It's gonna be a little bit harder to cut the other one off. I guess you can order a new piece. It's a lot more expensive. So that whole piece, and now I'll show it later. Actually I showed it in the first video, but it cost me about $480 from LKQ, and it's a lot of pieces. I mean, I have everything I could need, pretty much. Where if you buy only the outer skin quarter panel, I think it's over $1,000 to buy a new one. And it doesn't come all the way to the roof. I don't know where they cut it off, but it does make it easier because you don't have to cut the new one off. You know, you just get the new one, you set it where you need to, you drill some holes to weld it, and there you go. Where I'm gonna have to take a little bit more time than I'm taking with this one to take the other one off, so that I don't damage it, because that's the final product. So, but that's how you take these off. These things work pretty decent for what they are. Just use the drill bit to drill that little hole to keep it from going all over the place. So I just wanted to show that. I'm gonna keep, actually at this point I'm gonna go look at the other piece so I can remove that trim and the bottom piece, and then I'll show everyone how that is done, and then I'll cut the rest of this quarter off. Almost ready to really start cutting on the other piece, so I can start figuring out where I'm gonna weld. So I went ahead and brought the replacement part over here. So I've been just taking some of the parts off. So I took these pieces that are for the bumper, took that off. I just don't want to break them. I was taking off I took a bracket from the inside off, and I was taking this, so this one was a little bit different. It had this little like a side splitter attached to there. But really what I found out on this plastic piece, so it is attached here at the bottom. Hey, say hi, Rocket. All right, go away. So this one's attached here with Christmas tree clips all on the bottom. Now this one has some broken bolts, but that's just for this piece here. So normally, like that car shouldn't have those. I do have to take the rest of these out so they're not in the way. And then it looks like here on top, it's hard to see, but it's maybe it's easier to see through there. There's clips on it. Now the hard part is, I almost feel like those clips are gonna, they're gonna break as I take them out. So I know if like that, if I slide this plastic piece off, it's actually just coming off of those clips. So maybe the trick is just to pull it up. Let me just pull these bolts out. There's a Torx right here, so maybe this is factory. And then I'm gonna just try to pull it out to slide it off of those pieces there and see if that works. I guess I'll leave the camera rolling while I do this. Now you're on the floor, so the view angle probably is not the best, but you can still see what I'm doing here. Torx screw. This one looks like it's factory, so I'm gonna assume any kind of Mustang has that one, and then this bottom pieces are gonna break regardless. So. Okay, so really when you pull it up, all of these clips except, hey Rocket, except the one came off, and it looks like it broke. So for the rest of these, it's going to be a little bit hard to get them out because it looks like you have to pinch the little tabs, and obviously how can you go behind the car and pinch them? Now this one, if you can see there, it's kind of hard to see, but you can maybe, I mean, I put this in there and it kind of squeezed it. So like this one is good. I can save that one. I'm gonna try to save these, and then when I take the one off the car, I'll try to save the one in the car. That way I can use it. If not, I mean, I guess I'll just order some clips. I'm sure you can get them from Ford, or I use this company named Disco that has pretty much all OEM clips. I think I have a catalog somewhere from when I work at a parts store, and I'm thinking I can probably get them from them. But see, I have two that are good. I guess if you take your time, and same with this car, I mean, I'll take my time doing it, because you know, even if I get a bag of clips, that's probably gonna be like $20. So if I can save them, you know, that'll save me $20 here, and little bit of money here and there adds up in the long run. The other nice thing about this, dude, is that the quarter is welded right here, right at this area, so it's gonna be really easy to, well, not easy, but a lot easier to get these spot welds out, and then really to weld this new one over there. It's not all the way here at the bottom, so that's gonna make it a little bit easier on here from what I've seen so far. So that's how you take this out. Like I said, the bottom ones, I mean, they're gonna break. It's gonna be hard to get those Christmas tree fasteners out from where they're at. This ones, I would say, you know, try to pull it up, and that's what I'm gonna do on the car over there. At least that way they slide out, and you know, you don't like mess this ones up, and then pull them out afterwards and see if you can save them. But I'm gonna get these two out, and then I'm gonna see about that seal there at the top. And then I'll probably do this off camera, but I think I'm just gonna cut this here right at this end, and then I'm gonna try to cut this heavy frame out. So I'll try to cut here, you know, probably like way out here all the way, because I don't need none of the inside side of this, and this is gonna make it lighter so I can actually, you know, put it like on like a bench and stuff. Like right now it's a little bit heavy because it's a lot of metal here, so I'm gonna try to do that, and then I'll follow up here in a little bit. So I'm gonna work on this bottom first, just so that way I can move it around easier and just start taking it apart. Okay, so more work here on the quarter panel. So I was able to detach pretty much like the hard frame off of the quarter. This section here is really heavy, and that's where a lot of the weight is coming from. So now I did cut, you know, all that from the inner side, but I have everything that I need. This whole corner, I have extra here. I am still gonna, you know, drill the spot welds and everything. I did cut more off of the top here, so it's a little bit less material. And then here I left pretty much a good amount that I'm gonna need here on the top of the trunk, but there's still quite a bit here of material, I mean, that I really don't need, but this is as far as I'm gonna cut here, because, you know, I have here under the trunk floor, which I could use that little bit of area that is right there. But this is a lot lighter now than, you know, what it was with that big piece. So I really didn't have to do that, and so just my thought was, you know, get some of the weight off so I can kind of move it around easier. But that was just a lot of work. I'm probably gonna just cut that in half, so that way when I take it to the scrap yard I can load it easier by myself. But what I'm gonna do now is, or what's next is gonna be to remove this glass, because I do have to take all the spot welds off here. And I am gonna try to pretty much cut it right up there on this panel, that way I have extra. And then cut all the spot welds here and here on the bottom. And then I just need to really think about where I'm gonna cut here. So I think I do wanna come here, maybe separate it here, but then once I get maybe to this area here where it's glued, just start, you know, go in and then cut the wheel well. So this part that's a little bit damaged there, I can repair it, weld it here, probably go all the way here to the, actually all the way in here. That's kind of the plan. And then from what I see over there, probably still maybe just go here all the way down. I do want to keep all of this, maybe one piece, and then possibly here on the inside just kind of go up to here, just so I don't have to deal with this little bit of piece that's damaged. So maybe just kind of cut down here, and I can weld that from underneath, so that's not a big deal. So I'll start kind of figuring that out in there. I'll keep some of this corner mostly. I do have to take pretty much the skin off from there. And up here, I mean, I really just need up all the way to here. So I may cut a little bit more here and then go and just get the inner side off as much as I need to, you know, remove the rest of that glass that's broken. So that's going to be the next episode. At this point, you know, if you're following along something like this, it just takes time and kind of patience. And this took a lot of time, but I really just wanted to get that weight off of the quarter and start kind of taking some of the metal off. I didn't want to just, you know, cut too much and then later I'm like, well, I don't have enough. So that's it for this episode. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.